right, welcome to Explore Yellowstone Like a Local, home to the top-rated guidebook for Yellowstone and Grand Teton National Parks, home to the top downloaded podcast for Yellowstone and Grand Teton National Parks, and now home to some fun YouTube videos for the parks as well. And I am your author as well as your host for all of the above, Teddy Garland. And this video is an introduction video to the guidebook Explore Yellowstone Like a Local. For those of you that may have picked up on the podcast and wonder why I'm talking about a certain section of road on the park, or you guys have joined our Explore Yellowstone Like a Local Facebook group and wonder why everybody's talking about a guidebook, and you're wondering about what that guidebook entails, and you want some more information before you purchase one for your family's vacation to Yellowstone Park. That's what this quick gloss over of the guidebook is going to do for you guys. So hopefully at the end of this video, you guys will have enough information to know whether you should purchase a guidebook or not for your family's vacation to Yellowstone National Park. So let's get started. All right, the basic premise of the guidebook is to break the enormous size of Yellowstone Park down into manageable bites or areas that you can easily and enjoyably self-guide your family or your group through each day of your Yellowstone Park vacation. And the reason for that is Yellowstone Park is just enormous, you guys. It is 3,500 square miles. And let me convey how big that is to you guys. A lot of people are familiar with the Yosemite National Park. In Yosemite National Park, the main valley where El Capitan is, and they do all the rock climbing and all the waterfalls are and all that kind of stuff. That's the main area of Yosemite National Park that everybody that may be watching this video has visited before. And it takes all day to visit that one area in Yosemite National Park. The Yosemite Valley was by far and away the most popular spot in Yosemite National Park. And just to give you guys an example of how big Yellowstone Park is, you can fit 583 Yosemite valleys inside the boundaries of Yellowstone National Park. You can fit 15 New York cities inside the boundaries of Yellowstone National Park. Yellowstone Park is larger than the state of Connecticut. That's how big Yellowstone Park is, and it catches everybody off guard. Everybody is used to visiting a national park in their home state or other national parks before they visit Yellowstone and go, okay, we're going to be able to do it all in a day. There's no chance. You have to break Yellowstone Park down into areas that you can easily and enjoyably do in a single day. And that is exactly what the guidebook does for you guys. So let me give you guys some ideas about how big Yellowstone Park is. It takes 4 days to visit everything there is to see and do in Yellowstone Park and see the whole park, and then a 5th day to see Grand Teton. And so let me kind of gloss over those 4 days for you guys. One thing everybody's going to want to do that is watching this video is go watch geysers go off at the Old Faithful area over here. It takes all day to go watch the geysers go off. There's a chapter in the guidebook called Geyser Day. Old Faithful, Grand, and all the rest. And that one chapter in the guidebook tells you how to work the geyser basin, how to get the predicted times, even tells you where to park, where the best place to watch Old Faithful go off from, what geysers are your priority, because Grand, the largest geyser on Earth, only goes off every 7 hours. And I tell you when you need to be there before its predicted time so you don't miss it, and have a great day in the area, in the Old Faithful area, watching all of the geysers go off. Another thing everybody's want to do is visit the rest of the geyser basins above Old Faithful, between Madison Junction and Old Faithful, or all the rest of the geyser basins. And there's more stuff to do in this one section of Yellowstone Park than the rest of Yellowstone Park combined. That's why it takes 2 days to see it. There's a second chapter in the guidebook called The Rest of the Geyser Basins. And I tell you how to visit all the rest of the geyser basins, including how the best place to go see Grand Prismatic from, the most photographed pool on Earth, with all the glorious colors like a rainbow spread out in front of you. It's just incredible. But it's best seen from the air, and I tell you how to get to that upper viewing platform and visit all the rest of the geyser basins through here in that chapter. Another thing everybody's going to want to do in the park is go hunt bears and wolves. And bears and wolves are all located up on the northern end of the park. and I give you all the tips you guys need to go find bears and wolves in Yellowstone Park. And we even have a competition about who sees the most bears and wolves, get some free t-shirts and free hats and stuff at the end of the year. And everybody that joins our Explore Yellowstone Like a Facebook group posts those pictures of the bears on there. And in 2023, we had a guy see 12 bears before noon just by following the tips in the guidebook. So that's what your third day. And on your fourth day, you're going to do the lower loop of Yellowstone Park. You're going to go to the canyon area and you're going to see the glorious yellow colors of the canyon and understand why Yellowstone bears the name it does. We're going to visit Artist Point, the brink of the lower falls, all the areas right through here, and have a great day doing it. And we're going to stay out in front of all the crowds. We're getting ready to get into how the guidebook saves you time. But we're going to visit the canyon area. Then we're going to go past the Hayden Valley and see the largest free roaming bison herd on earth. Then we're going to get to the Mud Volcano area. Then we're going to do all the stuff around Yellowstone Lake and see the remnants of the last Yellowstone Park eruption of the Yellowstone volcano. We're going to see the Grand Tetons down here. We're going to cross over Isa Lake and see the only lake in North America that pours its waters both into the Atlantic and the Pacific. And then we're going to swing past Old Faithful, and that is what is called completing the South Loop. And there's a chapter in the guidebook called the South Loop: Canyons, Mud Volcanoes, and Yellowstone Lake. And that too takes one day to do. So those are your 4 big days in Yellowstone Park, and that has nothing to do with any of the hiking. There's the biggest chapter in the guidebook is the hiking chapter in the guidebook. I've got 19 day hikes scattered all through Yellowstone Park for you guys, which are suitable for the smallest hiker in your group, or perhaps you've got somebody elderly in your group that needs a short, easy hike. I've got 18-day hikes that are a little bit tougher. But if you've got a teenager, or so you guys are feeling a bit frisky, those little hikes are scattered all through Yellowstone Park as well. My guidebook has become the gold standard for hiking in Yellowstone Park. Remember, there are over 1,000 miles of trails in Yellowstone Park, but 80% of them are just walking through the trees. Yellowstone Park has some of the most amazing thermal features and geysers going off and hot pools not found anywhere else on planet Earth, and my hiking chapter gets you to all of them. And your 5th day in Yellowstone Park is visiting the Grand Tetons down here. The Grand Teton Park is small enough that it can easily and enjoyably be seen in one day. So it takes 4 days to see everything in Yellowstone, just a quick gloss over, and then the 5th day is down in the Tetons. So hopefully you guys have 5 days to visit everything in Yellowstone Park. So that's the premise of the guidebook, is it breaks Yellowstone Park down into smaller areas that you can self-guide your family through and have a great day doing it. So all right, so let's get into my family's history. You're kind of asking yourself, does this guy really know what he's talking about in Yellowstone National Park? So let's get into my family's history and how long we've been going up to this area. The first photograph we can find is all the way back in 1919. And that is a picture of my father at about 4 years old, his older brother Jack, and my grandfather standing right in front of Old Faithful. Back then, there was no boardwalks or anything else. You just walked up there and stood next to the rock, got there 20 feet from Old Faithful, and it's blowing off right behind him. Those days are long gone, I promise you. So you walk out there on those rocks today, you're going to get thrown in the Hooska house. So, but yeah, so that's the first photograph we can find. And the family history goes back to about 1912. But we haven't been able to document that. But that's that first photograph we can find is 1919. And so, and what we did was my grandfather drug my father and his brothers all through Yellowstone and Grand Teton for all of those years. And then my father, of course, had me and my brother and my sister, and we got drugged through Yellowstone Park for all of those years. And so basically, we have over 100 years experience of visiting all of Yellowstone Park. And you guys got to remember, back in 1919, 1915 or so, 1919, the car was just getting invented. So we had to go through horseback through all of Yellowstone Park. And so we've also got these hand painted photographs that were done in 1922 by a gentleman named Harrison C. Crandall. And Harrison C. Crandall was a painter down here in the Grand Tetons. One of those paintings is of my granddad Fred fishing on the Snake River right in front of the Tetons at the Snake River Bend right here with the Tetons back behind him. He's got a bunch of fish in this creel and all that kind of stuff. The other picture is up in Lake Solitude. You guys can Google up Lake Solitude. Lake Solitude is a great hike in the Tetons. I get you guys to, but it takes all day to get back there. It's very, very difficult to get to. But in 1922, my dad and his brothers and my grandfather were back there on horseback tent camping on Lake Solitude with the Grand Tetons back behind there. And Harrison Crandall also did a hand painted photograph, is what they were called, of that picture right there. My father's about 3 or 4 years old, standing in a little yellow slicker. That picture is in the guidebook for you guys. And Harrison C. Crandall, 7 years later, in 1929, when Grand Teton is named an actual national park, my family was visiting Grand Teton before Grand Teton even existed. The Grand Teton National Park even existed. Harrison Crandall in 1929, the year Grand Teton becomes a national park, becomes the first official painter for Grand Teton National Park. My granddad Fred had actually hired the right guy to do those paintings for him 7 years before Grand Teton was even named a national park. So that's my family's history up there. We have been going up there for well over 100 years, and I myself have been in Yellowstone Park over 5,000 times. I have visited Yellowstone Park more than most people have, for sure. In fact, a ranger buddy of mine once told me that, Teddy, there's not many people know more about Yellowstone Park than you do. And I said, well, I know a few for sure. And he goes, but they don't write a guidebook, do they? And I said, yeah, they do not. That's for sure. So, all right, so we kind of went over my family's history up there and how much knowledge I have of Yellowstone Park, and I'm regarded as one of the foremost authorities in Yellowstone National Park. And so let's get into what features I have put into the guidebook for you guys so you guys can save time and money on your Yellowstone Park vacation. First thing let's talk about is let's saving time. In the Planning Your Yellowstone Park Vacation chapter in the guidebook, I tell you guys when you need to plan your Yellowstone Park vacation, how you should avoid the early spring and the late fall because it's simply too cold and everything is closed. And then how you guys should avoid the busy months of July and August if you can, because that's when, 90% of the park visitation occurs in those 2 months of July and August. But I do tell you in there, when I have been going up there for the last 60 odd years, and I promise you, after 100 and plus years of going up there, my family has got to figure out when you guys should go. And I put that information in the guidebook for you guys so you guys can have a much more enjoyable trip to Yellowstone National Park. Another thing we have added for you guys in the guidebook a few years ago is an itinerary section. And in that itinerary section, whether you've got 1 day or 7 days to visit Yellowstone National Park, I give you guys the top itineraries, what you should do on day one. If you've got 2 days, what you should do on those 2 days. If you've got 3 days, what you should do on those 3 days. So you have the best of the best of the best of Yellowstone Park, depending upon how many days you guys visited. There's a really great itinerary section in that guidebook for you guys, and everybody, especially newbies to Yellowstone Park. It really, really helps you guys plan a great vacation to Yellowstone Park. All right, the next thing we're going to talk about is a rating system in the park. We've got a rating system of how really cool something is. If it's got a rating of 5 happy faces in the guidebook, then it is not to be missed on any trip to Yellowstone Park. If it's got a happy face rating of 1, then you guys can skip it. You don't need to worry about it. But there's also some of the sites in Yellowstone Park are difficult to get to. So if it's got a difficulty rating of 5, that means it's very, very difficult to get to. It's going to take you at least 30 minutes to get there, and it's a long, hard walk to get there. But if it's got a difficulty rating of 1, anybody can get there. An elderly on a walker, a small little kid can get there, anything like that. So let me give you guys a quick example of that. Over in the canyon area over here, Artist Point, which is not to be missed on any trip to Yellowstone Park. It's easy to get to. The parking lot's right there. They've got a walkway down to Artist Point. They've even got a handicap access ramp to get down to it. And you guys can easily access Artist Point. And it is a 5 out of 5 on the scale, on the happy face scale, easily. It's not to be missed on any trip to Yellowstone Park. And it's very easy to get to, so it has a difficulty rating of 1. However, also in the canyon area is the brink of the Lower Falls. And the brink of the Lower Falls is my second most favorite thing in Yellowstone Park besides Grand Geyser down here at Old Faithful, which is the largest geyser on Earth. Now, if you guys want to get to the brink of the Lower Falls, and that again is a not to be missed site on any trip to Yellowstone National Park, but it has a happy face rating of 5, but it has a difficulty rating of 3 because you have to go back, forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth down the zigzag walkway all the way down to the river level right there to get to the platform where the waterfall's just shooting off like a torrent of thunder off your right shoulder. And it's difficult to get back out. It takes about 10 minutes to get down and 15 minutes to get back out. You guys remember, you're at almost 9,000 feet of elevation up the canyon area up here, and that air is thin. It's difficult for some people to get out, so that has a difficulty rating of 3. And there's other things in the park that should be avoided. And one of them is like Norris guys are basing over here. Norris is basically a dud. I give Norris about a 2 out of 5 on the happy face rating at best. And there's so much better stuff to see in Yellowstone Park than Norris. So that's why Norris has a happy face rating of only 1 to 2 when you guys get over there. And the trails are kind of janked up, so it's got a difficulty rating of 4. So that kind of tells you that Norris is a dud. So that's how that rating system works for you guys, so you guys can pick out certain things in the park. And for things that you really want to see, happy face of 5, and they're really easy to get to. But you guys may want to go visit another area that's got a happy face rating of 5 and a difficulty of 3, but now it's a little harder to get to. And one other thing that you guys will find in the guidebook, let me swing over here and grab this real quick. In the back of every guidebook, you will find a QR code back there, and that QR code gives you access to our private YouTube page. And we have shot up to almost 170 videos all through Yellowstone National Park and Grand Teton and some of the outside areas over here for you guys. So you guys can be reading along in the guidebook and see the little YouTube icon in there. And if that kind of interests you, what I'm talking about in the guidebook, you can go to that private YouTube page and pull it up and then find that item, and you'll see me at that area telling you about that site in Yellowstone Park. So not only can you read about it in the guidebook, you can get on that private YouTube page for those of you that buy a guidebook and see me talking about that item. You guys, everybody should see the Osprey Falls one. That is by far and away the coolest one we've ever shot. And I'm just down there at Osprey Falls and just a torrent of thunder behind me. It's amazing. It's a great video. But that's just one of the things that the guidebook gets you guys. So not only do you get to read about it in the guidebook, you can go to that private YouTube page and see that, but it's only available to those of you that purchase a guidebook. So now also let's talk about saving money. There, if you'll follow the tips in the guidebook on planning your Yellowstone Park vacation chapter in there, you can save money on flights, lodging, and dining. And there are a number of outskirt areas around Yellowstone Park that you guys can check to see if you guys can find some cheaper flights. And then also lodging. I've got about 9 places to stay right in West Yellowstone, and then I've got listed about 8 or 9 others around Yellowstone Park, and some of them are great budget options. I've got places where you guys can stay for less than $100 a night, right outside of West Yellowstone, right there. I mean, there's nothing cheaper than that besides sleeping in your car on the side of the highway. So, but I've got all of those budget options listed for you guys in the guidebook, and a lot of the places I've got listed in West Yellowstone are, they don't advertise on Expedia or anything else because they're small and they've got repeat customers, so they don't need to advertise anywhere, then pay that fee to Expedia to be on there. They've got repeat customers, they don't need it, but I put those in the guidebook for you guys. And I don't care if you've just got the 2 of you or 20 of you, I've got a place in that guidebook where you guys can find a place to stay right in West Yellowstone or right on the surrounding areas. We cover places that are on a slow moving river where your back porch backs up right to the water. You guys can go fishing right there when you get out of the park in the end of the day, or you guys can stay on a high mountain lake right outside the park, is like a place where I grew up as a kid. So, but all of that is covered in the lodging part of the chapter in the guidebook for you guys. And then also dining. I've got a number of restaurants in West Yellowstone and the surrounding areas that are fun, eclectic places. And I only send you guys to places that have good food and good service at a budget price. And I cover all of that stuff in Jackson Hole as well. I've got some good budget options to stay in Jackson Hole if you guys want to stay down there. And I've also got places for you guys to eat down there in Jackson Hole. They're in that Jackson Hole chapter in the guidebook for you guys. So, all right, to close this video out, let me give you guys a story about a lady that stumbled onto the podcast, bought a guidebook, and she ended up saving a lot of money on a Yellowstone Park vacation, just like you guys can do. So she stumbled onto the podcast, heard me talking about the guidebook, bought a guidebook, and then she started following the instructions in the planning your Yellowstone Park vacation. And she was staying down in Jackson Hole down here. And she quickly realized after reading the guidebook that Jackson Hole is simply too far to access Yellowstone National Park. It takes about 3 to 4 hours to get up to Old Faithful alone down here on the southern end of the park, more or less getting to the rest of Yellowstone Park. And there's simply no reason to spend 6 to 8 hours in your car needlessly when you can access it so quickly from the West Yellowstone area right here, and boom, you're right there. But she just didn't know. And so she moved her lodging from Jackson Hole up to West Yellowstone. And right there, she saved $2,000 because rooms in West Yellowstone are basically half of what they cost in Jackson Hole. And the next thing she did was she was reading the information on flights in there and the alternative airports I've got listed for you guys. So she changed her flights to one of the outskirt areas I listed for you guys in the guidebook to fly into. She saved $450 per person on her flights for a family of four. So she saved another $1,800 right there. And then her car rental was cheaper because they have more cars to rent in these outskirt areas. They're bigger airports. And then she simply said it was an easy hour-and-a-half drive to get to their place right outside of West Yellowstone. So all in all, she saved right at $4,000 for a week-long vacation simply by buying a $25 guidebook. I'm telling you guys, there's not many investments that are going to pay off like that, but it's really easy to do. And then she just didn't realize how quick it was to access everything in Yellowstone Park. And they just had a great time. They had the time of their lives, the vacation of their lives, she said. And she said they couldn't wait to go back the next year and use the guidebook again, because you guys got to remember, there's almost 3 months worth of stuff to do in that guidebook, counting all the hikes in Yellowstone National Park. Let me just cover it for the last thing in this video real quick for you guys, is the hiking chapter in the guidebook. And the hiking chapter is by far the longest chapter in the guidebook. And there are over 1,000 miles of hikes in Yellowstone Park. But 80% of them are just walking through the trees. You know, you can do that in Colorado, but those other 20% are badass. I mean, you guys are basically hiking on the second largest volcano on planet Earth besides Tambora. And I mean, you guys can go see these backcountry pools and watch geysers erupt with nobody around, or hike behind, go to a big waterfall with thermally heated water pouring all over you to go out behind it, come out the other side and soak in a hot pot right at the bottom of it. I get you guys to all that stuff. I get you guys to the best of the best of the best hikes in Yellowstone National Park. And they're all covered in the guidebook. I have got 18-day hikes all scattered all through Yellowstone Park that are suitable for the smallest hiker in your group. So you guys can take your family on any of them. And then I've got 19-day hikes all scattered through Yellowstone Park that are a little bit tougher, that may not be suitable for small little kids. And then I've got, multi-day hikes and everything else. I cover all the hikes in the Grand Tetons. I tell you which hikes are suitable for small kids. I get you guys right up into the spires of the Tetons, where the Teton range is just shooting off both your shoulders. Then I tell you guys which hikes not to do in the Tetons, where you're hiking with hundreds, if not 1,000 people listening to rap music out loud on their phones. I get you guys off those trails and onto the really good trails. And you guys can access and see videos of all of those through that QR code that's in the back of that guidebook. So you guys can see those trails before you ever get on them. So all in all, that guidebook is an indispensable tool to help you guys not only plan and execute a great Yellowstone Park vacation, you guys can also save thousands of dollars on your trip as well by following those money-saving tips on flights, lodging, and dining as well. So, all right, you guys have a wonderful time in Yellowstone National Park. And let me whip over here and grab this. And for you guys want to grab a guidebook, just simply go to our website, exploreYellowstoneLikeALocal.com, and you can pick up an electronic copy of this guidebook for only $12, or you can get a paperback copy for $25. And I write a personal note in there to everybody that buys one and throw in a cool Yellowstone Park sticker as well. And also on our website, you'll see tons of reviews that people have looked on the guidebook, where they have sent us pictures. We have posted them on there for you guys so you guys can see those. And everybody should join our Explore Yellowstone Like a Local Facebook group. You'll see a ton of pictures that people have posted on there of people having a great time in the parks with the help of the guidebook. And we also sell some cool merchandise. We have cool hats, trucker hats, t-shirts, and all that stuff for you guys as well. So you guys can wear the gear and have a great time in Yellowstone Park as well. And I promise you guys, I practice what I preach. I am in Yellowstone Park 3 or 4 days a week, and I'm up there for 4 months out of the year. I practice what I preach. You guys will see me in Yellowstone Park, and we'll go mess around in Yellowstone Park and do some cool hikes and all. We will have an absolute ball. Talk to you guys later. Thanks. Bye.